This is absolutely insane. Now, we all remember the story from a couple months ago of MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred stepping foot in the Phillies locker room where he was not met with welcome arms by Bryce Harper and the rest of the players. But new details have emerged of what exactly was said, and Bryce Harper allegedly being threatened by MLB personnel. I do want to break down the new details, what we know in the situation, what I think that this resolution is ultimately heading for, and why I think this is so bad for the sport in its entirety, and dive into how this relationship can remotely be salvaged for Manfred and Bryce Harper, and if it even matters if that is the case. So to flash back a little bit, did want to pull up the initial tweet from Jeff Passan here, who says, Philadelphia Phillies star Bryce Harper stood nose-to-nose with MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred during a meeting last week and told him to, quote, get the F out of our clubhouse if he wanted to talk about a salary cap, sources told ESPN. News free and unloaded. Now, for Bryce specifically, and for the commissioner specifically, this is going to be one of those hot button topics that we're going to speak about for until the new CBA is resolved. And my unfortunate take here is I think baseball is destined to be heading towards a lockout. And I think that is such a bummer for the sport in its entirety that I do feel that there's this momentum and this growth of baseball that I think both sides need to put a little bit of, pride to the side and understand that the best thing for everyone is to continue growing right now. But nonetheless, I understand that those feelings are not so easy, and there are some real deal details that do need to get sorted through. Now, to dive into what sparked this back to the timeline here, is we got this podcast, the Agent Provocateur podcast, which I was not familiar with, but the dude Alan Walsh, I'll get into a little bit deeper of his background, but a dude that is a former agent, primarily an NHL agent, but a guy that is very tapped in there. And what he says on the podcast is, quote, what was said, the altercation between Phillies leader Bryce Harper and MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred was apparently much worse. Bryce Harper was, quote, allegedly threatened by a high-ranking deputy for speaking to Bryce Harper in such a way. And the exact quote that was laid out there is, quote, that's how people end up in a ditch. That is a legit threat. That is like a mob ties, mafia type of threat there, and just has no business coming out of an MLB personnel's mouth in its entirety here. Now, could this just be completely made up? I do think there is a chance of that. But I will say there is some legitimacy, and I do think that there is some regards to this checking out. So I want to dive deeper into things here and pull up a couple other sources that this article coming from Yahoo Sports references at the time the relationship or what was reported on things from Jeff Passan here. It's right. Philadelphia Phillies star Bryce Harper stood nose-to-nose with Rob Manfred during a meeting between Major League Baseball commissioner and the team last week, telling him to, quote, get the F out of our clubhouse if Manfred wanted to talk about the potential implementation of a salary cap, sources told ESPN on Monday. The confrontation came in a meeting, one of 30 that Manfred conducts annually in an effort to improve his relations with every team's players, that lasted more than an hour. Though Manfred never explicitly said the words salary cap, sources said the discussion about the game's economics raised the ire of Harper, one of the MLB's most influential players and two-time National League MVP. And to interject a little bit here, Bryce Harper, he's not a peer of Rob Manfred, obviously, that there is this commissioner-to-player relationship or, rankings that does change the power dynamic to an extent. But this is not a nobody. That this is a guy that if you're going to have these conversations, he should be present at the table. That he is one of the most well-respected players in baseball, a guy that was hailed as this prodigy-like talent that has lived up to every bit of those expectations and more, and a guy that is very vocal in the MLB union, the players union there. So this isn't a nobody saying this. Bryce Harper, if he's going to get fired up about it, is one of the guys that sort of has the right to do that, at least from my view there. Now, I'm not saying he should be cursing out the commissioner. We know the Bryce temper issues as well, but nonetheless did want to throw that out there. Now, to continue on with the article, is it states, yesterday, new details of that dust-up emerged via the Agent Provocateur podcast. I'll link the clip below, but first, a summary of those details from Newsweek. And it says, quote, Manfred was visiting with the Phillies as a part of an annual visit he hosts with all 30 club's players. Harper reportedly told Manfred to, quote, get the F out of our clubhouse when Manfred mentioned the idea of a salary cap. Manfred reportedly replied by saying he would not leave and continued the meeting. Those details from ESPN were the only details of the altercation until a new report from sports agent Alan Walsh during an appearance on the Agent Provocateur. Walsh reported that later a deputy of Manfred's allegedly threatened Harper, quote, don't ever say that again to the commissioner, Walsh said, quoting what was allegedly said to Harper. Don't ever disrespect him again publicly like that. That's how people end up in a ditch. Now, to dive into who this dude is, I did want to give a little bit of background here. And this article continues on to give a little bit of his bio that writes, Alan Walsh is not merely a bro on a sports podcast. He's the co-managing director of Octagon Hockey. He's reporting based on first-hand accounts he was told. He does his due diligence setting up all the prerequisite allegedlys within this reporting. He understands the gravity of what he's reporting. There are a couple items worth focusing on in these developments. Manfred's visits to all 30 clubs last season may have been couched as an effort to improve MLB and player relationships, but it was clearly a PR mission on behalf of the owners who want a salary cap, which has been a non-starter from the MLBPA for decades. Sending the commissioner in to see the owners stake in a fight over an item their union representatives are diametrically opposed to 18 months before negotiation that has the entire industry dreading a lockout already seem pretty suspect to savvy baseball watchers. It screams of an attempt to break professional sports' strongest union to save some billionaires a few $100 million more than probably should go to the players. Now, to interject a little bit here and just give the bare bones of what the salary cap debate is it's pretty simple economics of things. If the players do not want a salary cap because that means contracts can continue inflating at a level that whatever the highest bidder is, that's the player that's going to get it. Now, we've seen this work in all different sports leagues. Like the NBA, for example, is a league that has a salary cap. What is a quote-unquote soft salary cap that you can go above aprons and taxes and things like that. There's punishments if you do want to spend that much as far as limitations for what type of trades you can make. There's also, and baseball has been this direction, more or less a pay-to-play sport, that you can be the Los Angeles Dodgers if you want and spend more money than any other team in the league. And guess what? You just might win back-to-back World Series. Now, the argument in favor of why there should be a salary cap implemented into baseball is because not all owners have the same level of depth in their pockets here. Now, the Philadelphia Phillies are pretty blessed to have John Middleton as the guy that is funding the bill here. That is a dude that wants to spend to get winners in Philadelphia and pay to have a contending team. Not all owners feel that way, and there are a lot of teams around the league. You can look around at the Pittsburgh Pirates of the world. Now, I'll stick with them as an example. They have a incredible player and a guy like Paul Skeens, and basically have shown no desire to build a winner around him. That eventually, what I unfortunately see happening there is Skeens is eventually going to get paid a ton of money by another organization to leave there and join one of these super teams. The Yankees, the Dodgers, the Mets, the Phillies, whatever it may be in there. Those are the teams that spend. There is this clear difference. And I know that there are the examples. You can throw the Moneyball example in my face. The Athletics are a team that fits in this category of teams that don't traditionally spend there. The Rockies, another team that I would throw in that. The point being here, the argument in favor of the salary cap is it would even that playing field to an extent that you cannot have a situation like the Dodgers, who may just be unbeatable forever. They're expected to be aggressive again in free agency here, so that is the debate. Now, for the players, they don't want that to happen because they want these lucrative deals to continue. They want it to be whoever wants to spend the most money, that's consign me. If I'm Juan Soto, why would I not want to sign a $765 million contract if that's going to be presented to me? So that's sort of the debate, and that is why the heels are clearly dug in, is that the players do not want to, cut themselves off from potential earnings. The owners want an even playing field and want to save themselves a little bit of coin on the back end as well. And that's sort of the root of things and where this sticking point is. Now, to continue on a little bit with this article, that it continues to say, additionally, it's notable which details leaked during the season and which didn't come out until now. The original reporting, while not favorable for either side, was framed as Manfred just trying to know the players better, with the light side of the union busting and one of baseball's highest paid players flying off the handle. The allegation that there is an MLB deputy of Manfred threatening player safety with what can only be described as mob tactics is more by far the most egregious detail to be leaked so far. It's curious that we're not hearing about that until now. If true, it's a remarkable development. Threatening players who are aligned with their union could signal a particularly dark new chapter looming during this next CBA negotiation. Threats against superstars with impunity makes me wonder what other details from these 30-team meetings and other conversations have yet to emerge. And the biggest question that I have in my mind is I've only heard that Bryce Harper story as far as all these Manfred meetings with all these teams. I do wonder what the vibe or the tone or the tension was in these meetings across all these other organizations. That was there, a different situation when you're talking with the Rockies and you're talking with the Pirates or whatever. You go down the list of teams here. Bryce Harper is clearly a very opinionated player, a dude that has earned the right to have those strong opinions and let those be expressed to the commissioner. I probably would not prefer him screaming F-bombs at the dude within the walls of the Phillies locker room, but I also think there is sort of an aspect to you should get it off your chest here, that this is your chance. This is your moment, that you are probably never going to be in a direct room with Rob Manfred in this type of situation, maybe ever again, certainly for a year here. I do think it's lame that Manfred is just laying the groundwork for this now, and we're already getting into these like potential, all these conversations about the CBA. It feels too far in advance to be so worried about a lockout, as I think is going to be the case. There will be a baseball season next year, is the following year that we are having these discussions. If there was actually a threat to Bryce Harper, that is like an insane thing to happen here. That should be headline news. That should be, that dude is fired. That should be like all over the place in that conversation. We'll see if there's any sort of PR spin from the league directly here. I think this is probably one they're just going to try and hope slips in the background and everybody forgets about. But a pretty wild story, and pretty wild that Bryce Harper is the guy right at the heart of it. So it has been quite the offseason for Bryce Harper, man. And obviously this dated back to happening during the season, but between the trade reports, the rumors, him having his quotes, Dave Dombrowski basically taking shots at him at media day, not exactly the storylines that I want surrounding this dude. So we will put it all to the side and table this for now. I am curious if we get any more developments about this. Hopefully we get some actual Phillies news heating up in these coming days as the free agency period begins to really heat up, trade talks get underway, and all these other type of things. It has been fairly quiet in the world, but I do think some changes are coming. So I'm going to be breaking things down from every single angle right here on Phillies Digest. Appreciate you guys for rocking with me today. If you have not already, make sure you're smashing that subscribe button to the channel. Drop a like on this video here, giving your thoughts in the comments, and I'll be back talking to you next time right here on Phillies Digest. Peace.